Good morning. Today we're going to see how we can install Moodle MySQL 8 in OCI. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to create an instance, a compute instance to install our web server that will host the Moodle, right? I will add my SSH key to be able to SSH to it, and it should be in the public subnet, so it will have a public IP that I can join. Then I will create a second instance. The second instance will be for hosting MySQL 8. It will be in the private subnet, so not directly accessible from outside, from the internet. And I will also add my SSH key. And now let's them provision, right? My Moodle, my MySQL. You can see already that I have a public IP already there. It's ready. I use the SSH key. OPC user like usual. And you can see it's there ready to get the connection, and I'm connecting to it. So now I am on Moodle. To avoid all the issue with sudo, let's go by root. This is not something I recommend to do often, but much easier for me in this video to not mistype. I will install first the EPL repository and also Remy's repository to install latest PHP that is compatible with MySQL 8. The default secure authentication needs a recent PHP version, right? So I will enable also Remy's repo for using PHP 7.4. And here I'm installing PHP with some generic modules, right? With yum and of course PHP MySQL ND to the driver, the connector for MySQL, and that support MySQL 8 and all the authentication plugin and the latest one, right? So okay, you can see it installed PHP 7.4. which is needed so to connect from MySQL to MySQL 8, and also that it's Moodle, it's a PHP program, so I needed to use it on PHP. Okay, this is done. So now I will download Moodle. So I go on moodle.org. Take the latest package available. I will download the TGZ. Yeah, I don't need it on my machine, but on OCI. So here I will download that package. That was pretty fast. So we can verify that Moodle is installed. Now I will replace the HTML default directory with Moodle that I will unpack first. So now we have here the Moodle directory. I can remove the source, and I will rename Moodle as HTML, so I don't need to reconfigure everything in Apache, as this machine will host only Moodle, of course. I will change the ownership of the new HTML I created. So by Apache, the user that runs the web server. And I also need now to open the local firewall. So I will open the local firewall to allow connection on port 80, because I will use HTTP. Don't forget to use 443 if you are using HTTPS. So 80 TCP. I need to reload the firewall, so don't forget. Sometimes this is one mistake. People open ports, but they don't reload the firewall. So this is for the local firewall on the system, on the Linux system here. But and we also need to do that. Don't forget to open everything in the subnet in OCI. So we start now Apache, and we verify. So this is the public IP that we use to connect. But here, this is what I was telling you. So the subnet, you have also some security list here. I have a default one that I've already configured earlier for other projects, but you can see that I allow on the security list port 80. You can see that I allow also locally or in my private subnet the port 3306 for later. So this is what we get now if we go on that IP on the web, and we can see that we are reaching the Moodle installation. So the web address, there is a Moodle directory, so this is exactly what we decide, but also the data directory, and this is in this case default to var www Moodle data, which doesn't exist yet on our server, and so we're gonna create it. So I will create that directory. Then I also need to configure SE Linux to tell him that this is a directory that will be used by Apache, right? And I also need to change the ownership. And then I click next. So if it's okay, it reached this database driver, and by default it uses MySQL. So this is what we need. Now we need to configure the MySQL, but we haven't done anything yet on the database server. So our MySQL now, it's provisioned in OCI, and we can see its private IP 10.0.17. So let's get there. As it is not available publicly, so what we need to do, we need to use the Apache server that we created, my Moodle, as a jump host to connect now to our machine. Don't forget, you see I put minus capital A in my SSH command. It's to forward the agent. Now I install the MySQL 8 community repository. This is done, and I can start the installation of MySQL server, and I will also use MySQL shell as the client. I recommend to use the shell instead of the old MySQL client. Shell allows you also to use the X protocol when needed, but also a lot of other stuff that if you follow my blog, you can find a lot of information about the shell. So now it's installed all the packages. You can see that right now it's 8.19. Of course, servers, it's longer to install. So when this is done, it install also the shell. Everything is done now, ready on the MySQL. So we can start the MySQL process. So let's start MySQL server on the machine. So why does it take a bit of time? Because it initializes all the data dictionary, all the system tables and stuff. And it also generates a root password by default, because MySQL 8 is secure by default. So we need to find it in the var log on MySQL log, which is the default MySQL error log. And you can see that there is a safe temporary password that has been generated for the root user. So now we're gonna connect to MySQL using the shell. So I use MySQL shell, it's MySQL sh command, and I use it in SQL. By default it's JavaScript, but this is not part of this video. And I use root localhost with that password that we got from the log. No need to save it because we're gonna create a new one right now. So we need to reset our password. So let's do that. Set password and use a new root password. So my password will be my big password. Now we're gonna create also the database or the schema for Moodle, right? So let's do this. So we create database and let's call it Moodle, make it simple. Then I always advise to create a user for your application. So we're gonna create this user, and that user we're gonna call it Moodle, right? Like I said, keep it simple. So we give a password. Here is it. And now we're gonna grant access to the schema we just created before to that user. So we're gonna grant all privileges. He could add, delete, what he needs to do in that schema to be able to configure and use Moodle to Moodle. So this is done. Perfect. So now what we need to do. So as by default all this is secure, we need to open the firewall, the local firewall for 3306 also. So let's do that. Like I said earlier, when we modify the firewall command, here as you can see we put it permanent, so it means if we restart a machine 3306 will stay open. We also always need to reload the firewall. So let's reload it. Perfect. So now as we we didn't remove SE Linux, we also need to check if Apache can connect to a database remotely. So we're gonna check that, and this is a SE Linux policy that is HTTP can network connect to the database. So let's verify. Yeah. We need to specify the -p when we set it. So you can see it's off, meaning that it would not work. So we need to do set, this time with the -p, capital P, and we have to say it to 1. So now Apache's process will be able to connect to MySQL also. So we keep it as most secure as possible in our server in OCI. So now we go back to Moodle installation. We use the IP of our MySQL server. The user, we remember it was Moodle. The password, we remember was my password. Then the port, it's 3306, the default one. And we can continue with the installation. So everything is complete, but it could not save the configuration directly on the server. So we need to verify that also, because it's again SE Linux that doesn't allow us to do that. So we need to, exactly as we did for the Moodle data, we need to say, okay, don't forget that HTML also it's part of content that Apache can modify. So we do next. And this is okay. Now here we have some copyright notice and terms of condition that we need to accept. I encourage you to read them. And then the installation of Moodle says, oh, we need some extra extension to work correctly, PHP extension. And of course, we're going to install them also. We didn't know in advance what it was. The Moodle installation checks that and tells you, okay, we need to have PHP INTL, we need to have PHP XML RPC, we need to have PHP SOAP, and PHP OP cache. So let's do it. It's installed the same version, of course, of PHP we have installed, so 7.4 currently, and we need to restart Apache to be sure all that it's loaded on the system, and then we will go back to the installation of Moodle, right? So we restart Apache here, we check here and refresh the page, reload it, the check, it's happening again, and now everything is okay. We can continue. Of course, it says you are not using HTTPS. I will not create a certificate and everything right now, but this is up to you if you want to have HTTPS. So the installation proceeds. As you can see, there is a lot of stuff happening from the Moodle process, installation wizard, and we let it go. So as you can see, this is a lot of steps happening, right? When it's done, we do continue. And here we finished the installation with some information about our Moodle installation. So for example, the username, we need to have what's the name, what's the email address, the time zone, the city tone, everything. So this is quite trivial to fill. No need to much of explanation on that. The only tricky part is you will see the password. So, but let me finish first to fill this information. Okay, I am in Belgium, time zone. Of course, configure that according to your time zone. But for me, I am in Europe, in quarantine, close by Brussels. Here we are. And we update the profile. And like I said, the tricky part is the password. I didn't see initially that I had to click. So, okay, let's make my password. Make something very easy. Maybe too easy. Let's see. Yes, Moodle take cares about that and say, oh, your password is too easy. Make something more complicated, which it makes sense. So let's put a more complicated password, update our profile, and here we are. It creates all what it needs and it's done. We are finishing the installation with the latest wizard screen. So let's do Moodle in OCI. It will be my full site name with MySQL 8. Short name Moodle OCI. Some summary about your training website or training portal. And for me, let's make it, this is Moodle in OCI with MySQL 8. Again, some information about, MySQL 8 is great. And don't forget the time zone, self registration and everything, the email. And this is done. So we can register our site to Moodle. We won't do that now. And here we are. So then we are on the dashboard. You can start creating your trainings, your course, everything. So as you can see, it's very easy to install Moodle with MySQL 8. No workaround, nothing too specific, and very easy and very responsive in OCI. So I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you will create very nice training, learning stuff for your students. And we can verify in MySQL that everything has been created, right? And we check the tables, and you can see there is a lot of tables. So thank you for watching. If you want more information, follow me on Twitter and on my blog. So thank you very much. Bye bye.